All right, so now we're going to do the scroll thing. So what we need to do, in theory, is just open the side drawer and click on a section, and the page, it will scroll to that section. So what we need to do pretty much is to connect the side drawer right here. Remember, we have a list item where we can click on a console log. We click on a link, for example, venue info. And then here we can kind of trigger a function or tell the application to scroll to, a different component. So we kind of need to bind, to connect this onClick with one of the sections. This is what we need to do. So I'm going to be using a third-party library called React Scroll. The documentation in this one, it's not really great, but it works very, very good. So right here, you get all the documentation for this. Now you have all of these options. This is the kind of the usage or the demo. And in real life, you don't need all of this. They just put everything right here. It's not a very clear demonstration. Right here, you have all the props. We're going to use some of them. So do not read the documentation just yet. I'm going to show you how to do this, and you're going to see that it's much, much simpler than doing all of this. Okay, so I'm going to go to the side drawer, and first on the side drawer, we need to you need to bring this third-party library. But this is the way they tell you to do it. Now, instead of importing all, the start means all. We don't need all, we just need one thing, and we don't need all of this. We just need the scroller property. So I'm going to go right here, import, open and close, and I'm going to say scroller. And this is the only thing we need right here. So from React scroll. All right. And if you remember, of course, we've already have it installed. Let me just make sure. React scroll. Very good. So on the side drawer, we have the scroller. Very good. So now whenever we click on something, we want to trigger a function. Okay, so I'm going to create a function. I'm going to go right here at the bottom. And I'm going to call it, I don't know, scroll to element. Makes sense? Scroll to element. Something like that. Scroll to element. Is going to be just a function, open and close. And this one will be receiving an element. So this is the argument we're going to be getting. And the element is where we're going to go. We're going to go to menu, to highlights, pricing, or location. Okay. So now to use it, first we need to make use of the thing we've imported at the top. So scroller. Now dot, and this scroller has a method called scroll to. Now the scroll to is just a function, right? And this function needs two things, needs two properties. It needs the element where we're going to be, going to, which is element, and then a callback function. I'm sorry, and then the configuration of this scroller. So right here, and this is really simple. It's just the props we have right here at the bottom. So we can set the duration, how much is going to last this transition. So I'm going to put 1.5 seconds. Then the delay, how much it's going to wait before it starts transition. So the delay is just 100. Now, then you have a smooth, you get that fancy transition, which is going to be true. And then I'm going to show you maybe a couple more, but for now, this is good. So now, whenever we click on an element, for example, the highlights, we want to go to highlights. So instead of doing a console log, I'm going to make a reference to scroll to elements. So I'm going to delete the console log in highlights, for example. And I'm going to say, okay, this time I want to run a function that it's this scroll to element and then the name of where we want to go. In this case, I'm going to say highlights, something like that. So now whenever we click this, this is going to trigger the function, and the scroller, I made a mistake right here, scroll to. This is scroller. We'll try to find an element on our project, on our, our app, calls highlights. And the thing is that we don't have that. We just have components. So this scroller gives you a different part inside the library where we can wrap a component with a scroll to, which what it does, it adds a reference to that component. Let me show you. So I'm going to go, for example, right here we are clicking on highlights. So we need to go to the highlight component. Where do we have the highlight component? Inside app.js, right here. right here we have the highlight. So, you know, we need kind of a way to say, okay, scroll to this one, which is the name is going to be highlight. So the scroller will know that the name of this one is highlight. So to do this, we need to bring an element, you know, a component from React scroll. So I'm going to go right here after the styles maybe and import, and this one calls element. So it's going to be from and then React scroll. So now what we do, we need to grab this element and wrap the highlight just like here. I'm gonna say element, and inside I'm gonna put highlight. And let me make this a little bit better. So now this element is actually from React scroll, so the scroller knows that we have an element, but we still need to pass the name. So we add the property name, and in the case of highlight, we said that we want to go to the name of highlights. So I'm gonna say highlights, and that is it. So I'm gonna reload the application. I'm gonna go right here, and if I click on highlights, oh, I made a mistake. Our scroll to element is not a function. Okay, let me just double check. I made a mistake on this one. You know, it happens. Oh, I know why. I'm using. I'm not in a class, and I'm making a reference to this. So it's not this. It's just scroll to element. Let's try again. So highlights, and if I do it, okay, you know, it's kind of a going to highlights. The thing is that we have a floating header, a fixed header. So it's going to the right spot, but the header, it's kind of in the way. Now with the scroll to, we can set an offset. So I'm going to say comma and then off and then set. And I'm going to say -150, whatever. Okay, let's try again. I'm going to go right here at the top, click on highlights. And okay, now it's good. But the problem is that the side drawer, it's not closing. Okay, so what we can do, we can enter props. If you remember the props on close, we get this function that closes the side drawer. We have it inside props on close. So I can copy this and say, okay, whenever you do whatever it is that you want to do, just close the side drawer. Let's try again. I'm gonna reload it. I'm gonna go to the top, go to highlights, and that is it. All right. So now we need to do the same thing with the other ones. So I'm gonna do pretty much the same thing right here. I'm just gonna delete this and just delete the names. I'm gonna complete this in a second. So scroll to elements, then location, and highlights. Of course, it's already done. So the first one, I'm gonna call it featured. The second one, it's venue info, something like that. This one, it's pricing. And the last one, it's location, right? Location. Okay. So now I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger, and I'm gonna divide this so I can get, you know, the names right here. So it's feature, venue info, highlights, and pricing. So we need to repeat the same steps. So I'm gonna copy this, paste it, go right here at the bottom, and close the element. There we go. There we go. We are almost done. And the name is going to be featured. I'm going to repeat the same process with venue info. Now, I'm going to make it a little bit faster. I'm going to call the venue info, remove it, replace it, and then just replace the name. Highlights, it's already done. So I'm going to copy this one, paste it, copy the pricing, remove the highlights, and just change the name. And one more to go. Location. So copy location, remove pricing, and then location. Okay. So in theory, this should work. Let me just close this. Okay. So let me go back to the right. So I'm going to go to the top. So I'm going to start from location. If we go to location, we get it. All right. If I go to event starts in, which is featured, all right, we get it. Menu info, then highlights, right? And then pricing. So, okay, so everything works correctly. And this is the last thing we're gonna do for this project, right? Right now, it's done. So we're gonna see how to upload, how to put it inside of a production environment. Of course, remember that all the code of this one, I'm gonna give you a zip I'm gonna attach as a resource, a zip for this project. If not, of course, you can find it on GitHub. I'm gonna upload everything to GitHub.